Hello, my name is Terry. This video will cover our investigation of the Tri-County truck stop that occurred on October 11th, 2019. The next two clips contain EVP voices. These are voices that are only heard on the retrieval of the audio from the cameras. The first voice says, "Help," and the second one says, "Go and leave now." I'll repeat all of these EVPs 3 times so that you can better hear them. The second one in particular is weaker and more difficult to hear, but you can still, by careful listening, hear exactly what it's saying.
We'll either channel through that person or not be able to channel through that person. So I can give it to one person and it'll just say gibberish. That person.
The next clip covers individuals who are using the dowsing rods. You'll notice that they're helicoptering, spinning around and around rapidly. Usually this happens when an entity is agitated or angry. The one that's in the basement, I wouldn't have expected to communicate with people anyway. Normally you'll have them cross the 2 rods for yes and part them for no. And in this instance, they didn't want to have any communications with people, so it was producing the helicoptering effect. You'll notice it in these 2 clips that are blended together.
When you go onto the next floor, try it and see if it happens on the next floor that you go to.
It didn't happen. You did that upstairs. Did it happen up?
I don't know. I don't know if I paid attention.
Oh.
I think if it squeaked like that, you would notice.
Yeah, I don't think that happened on the roof.
I don't think not to this extent. I know.
Europe will be in the morning, earlier than that. Like Hungary's like at 5 in the morning.
Oh my God, look at this now.
In this clip, an individual who was on the first floor restroom area encountered with their K2 meter a spiking on the meter up to the mid-yellow gauge range, which is about the 7 milligauss area. What's interesting is that there's no electricity in this building, so the meter shouldn't be spiking to begin with. And furthermore, what's really interesting is what happened to her. While she was holding the meter began to shake. These meters contain no devices inside that cause them to shake like a cell phone would in, say, the vibrate mode. These are completely inanimate objects. The only thing that moves is the LED lights on the top of the device. Whatever it was physically touching the device while she was holding it in her hand, and that was what was causing it to shake. Another interesting thing that happened is that she stated that her arm went numb. This occurs if an entity physically touches an individual. It probably touched her on the arm at the same time it was manipulating the device.
What you had was different. You had
Upstairs.
that it was shaking.
Well, yeah, like if your phone, like your cell phone, if you have it on vibrate and you get a phone call and it just vibrates that second, it went to this orange for like a flash like it is now, and then it just like vibrated for like a split second. And I'm like, what was that?
Was it shaking side to side or front to back? Could you tell?
Actually, it just like vibrated, like,
Okay.
you know.
I thought the unit was supposed to do that.
No.
It wasn't real strong. It was just a slight
No,
vibration.
that gives off no physical feedback or movement whatsoever
It
at
was
all.
upstairs, all the way up, when we were going to go into the bathroom. Right outside
And
the
she's also
office
felt
door.
a pain in her arm.
Yeah, my arm.
Okay, now that's significant. Okay, now when you felt like a pain, did it feel like a stabbing?
It's like
Or was
her
it a
arm
tingly?
numb, like a dead arm.
Okay.
Vibrated, like,
Okay.
vibrated, like,
Okay.
vibrated, like.
Okay.
All of the following group of clips occurred during the historical presentation. What's interesting is that Ken had his PSB7 ghost box running quietly in the background. If you listen carefully, while Sandy and Greg are giving their presentation, you'll hear all these voices piping up, adding comments, and some of them are directly related to the subjects that they're talking about and making direct comments on the historical presentation. I just by coincidence decided to have the camera running to cover this event, and it turns out that this is one of the key things that they seem to want to respond to. Some of these voices are from the PSB7 Ghost Box. However, some of them I can tell are EVPs. So even though I've them listed as EVPs, the majority are actually from the Ghost Box.
So they were the ones that kind of took over the ownership at that point, and under the name the Diamonds. And that remained the Diamonds until 1967. When actually the original building was made of wood. You know, it was a wooden building, and it was destroyed by fire in March of 1947. So the first building here had a fire. After that, they rebuilt the building for a whole type of tragedies that happened here. There was a small girl that she was hit and killed by a speeding car just kind of right outside the building here on the highway, the old Route 66, when she got off of her school bus. They brought this reporter out there and a couple of folks from our team, and all of a sudden that rusty knife was thrown.
And she answered the phone, and I hear her on the phone, and she goes, "No, Shane, you need to tell Greg this from the team."
So that's what we want to try to keep everybody off the roadway tonight. A little dangerous out there. Also too, and I don't know for sure if we've ever really gotten documentation on this, but there's a story that's been passed down from generations of a state trooper who was poisoned here. So that's one of those things, it's like, it's kind of hearsay. We haven't actually found the documentation for it. A little colorful history. If those walls could talk, of course some of those walls aren't there anymore, but you know. They actually do kind of talk here. Let's see here. In the main floor, a man who was wearing khaki or tan pants with a checkered or plaid designed shirt was seen out here. And actually, Arlen Reed, who was the last owner of the building, that's kind of how he dressed. So we have a feeling that, you know, Arlen, he at least visits here. There was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bates, Mr. William Bates. Now, and actually he got quite the reputation of being kind of a crabby old guy. Greg, did you want to tell the story about the door upstairs? Did you?
Well, like Sandy was saying, back in 2006, we got called in. And we're setting up the old IR cameras and that we used to use, the 8mm. So I'm sitting there holding the door shut. And Terry is adjusting his IR emitter. And something kept tugging at the door from the other side, trying to open it on me. And I figured it was Tom from our team because I saw him up there a little bit ago. So I kept saying, "Tom, we're busy, we're trying to set up our light." I kept pulling the door, you know, shut, and it kept like jiggling and trying to open it on me, and it finally stopped. And then when I opened the door, there was no Tom there. He reluctantly told me he was in the men's bathroom, and he started hearing a noise like a sack of potatoes being drugged in there. Then he looked next, he was using the urinal, he looked next to the urinal next to him, and he saw this misty figure manifest into like a male. And he said he got so upset, he was embarrassed that he peed on the wall, peed on his foot, and then he took off out of there. What we're going to do, you're all split up in two cars. Did you have anything to say, Sandy?
No, because there's a lot of people here too that will continue telling you some of the stories, you know, of the place, because we could talk like for hours on this location. So we'll let you get out there and experience it.
This is a truncated clip from a game camera. It's automated to take 30-second clips after it's triggered. Well, one of the people set it off by simply moving in front of it. But what's interesting is the story that they're telling. They're talking about that they felt a hand on their chest pushing them back. But the camera clip ends at the 30-second mark, and I don't get to hear the end of the story. So I don't know if this happened at the Tri-County truck stop or another location. I'd kind of like to hear from this individual to find out if this happened at the Tri-County truck stop and in what room it occurred.
People had the back store. I felt a hand on the chest push me back.
In this first group of clips, you'll notice that they're commenting on Ken by name. He's the one who's running the PSB7 Ghost Box. And they're also making military phrase comments. acknowledging that they are fully aware that he's in the military.
Take coffee. Got some coffee. Brought it in. Hope that ain't a problem.
In this clip, I asked them directly how many ghosts are in the building, and surprisingly, they give a numerical answer. Now, the number is astronomical, 42, and I actually doubt that that's true. But what's interesting is that they're hearing our questions and providing direct replies through the PSB7 Ghost Box. They gave a numerical answer.
How many ghosts are in this building? It gave a number.
In this clip, Ken is using his cell phone to review the Cardinal game that's in progress. What's interesting is that the entities immediately start commenting on the Cardinal game, and when we start asking questions like, are they going to win the series, they start commenting on strategy and give doubtful assessments as to whether or not they're going to win.
Like the Cardinals.
The Cardinals game. Are the Cardinals going to win the World Series?
I also asked if the Cardinals were going to win the World Series at other locations such as Ashmore Estates. At that location, they told me that they were going to win the World Series. And as we all know, in 2019, they did not do so. So they gave a false answer, or they either didn't know what the true outcome was going to be and they made up an answer, or they were just playing with us and just toyed with us and gave us a positive answer, knowing full well that they weren't going to win. The following clips occurred when most of the people had already left the building. There were just a handful of PTF people left.
There. Another one. Immediately after you say footsteps, I heard a thud. Were you a trucker?
And I asked the entity point blank if they were responsible for these banging sounds, and they acknowledged that they were.
Is that you making those moving sounds? Or is that somebody else?
We heard a loud banging sound coming from the bar area. I then asked them about the Jeffrey Epstein case. But as in the situation we had in Ashmore, you can't put too much weight in their answers because you can't verify one way or the other what answer is truthful and what is not. Many of these entities just like to toy with you. So you'll just hear some very interesting comments.
Are you familiar with the Jeffrey Epstein case? Jeffrey Epstein's butler gonna have an accident? Actually, who killed Jeffrey Epstein? Was it the royal family? Exactly. I wish we could get you to testify. I'm going to have the most scandal-ridden episode.
If we end up dead, you know, it's quite...
Hello, as you can see, there's a change in the weather. I had to do a last-minute modification in this video. After reviewing the footage and looking over one of the tests that I had done, it seems that they scored a hit on one of my tests. I performed a box test. I had 3 boxes with objects inside each one that I'd hoped to get them to identify. They're very good at doing this, but I was very disappointed on this night that they'd failed to come across with any of the answers to the contents of the 3 boxes I'd provided. Well, upon review of the recent footage, which you'll notice this box C, which was situated on the table, was one of the 3 boxes. And inside, I had hoped that it would say either silver or money. What I had inside were these 1-ounce silver coins, and as you can see in the close-up on the still that I'll provide, it says Elizabeth II. And in the recent group of clippings, it says the word Elizabeth twice. In one, it truncates one of the words, and I believe it was attempting to say the word queen, but it failed to successfully say that.
What was odd is that one of these entities just gave a shout out to someone named Mike Young. I don't know who this individual is, but it may be related to someone who's in the group or someone who is close to someone in the group. It's just interesting that it was just thrown out into the middle of the conversation.
Can you tell me when we're going to get our first winter snow?
That's good.
Okay, we're going to say goodbye. Can you say goodbye?
At this point in time, there were just 3 people left in the building. What we recorded was the sound of a loud banging. We heard this loud and clear inside the bar area, and we looked completely around and we couldn't find any source for it. No heavy objects had fallen over, and we couldn't find any trigger for what could have caused this loud banging sound. When I reviewed the footage, there's also another sound that we did not hear at the time of the recording. Unlike the banging sound which we heard plain as day, there seems to be the sound of what sounds like a car crash accident occurring inside the audio track. This may be a duplication of these entities letting us know how they died in a car accident.
The amount of stuff that they understand, it's incredible.
In the next clip, the ghosts were really showing off. They produced an even louder bang, and from its sound, you could tell it was only a few feet away from us. Yet again, like the earlier banging sound, nothing had fallen over. There's no source or triggering of this sound. It just occurred out in the air for us to hear.
Get out of here now. Oh, okay.
That's amazing. Goodbye.
Good night.
By this point in time, we'd packed up all of our equipment except for my camera. I decided to leave that running and that I would walk out of the building with the camera running. I suspected that they were going to do something, so I didn't want to shut the camera down. All the other pieces of equipment had been packed up and were getting ready to leave. We're going to meet the last person in the building to let them know that we were leaving so that they would be by themselves from that point on. Well, before we ever met up with them, while we were walking towards the exit of the building, you can hear 2 strange EVP voices in these 2 clips on our way to walk out the door. these are very noteworthy, and I just had a suspicion that this was going to happen, that they would produce EVPs while we were walking out the door, or even in the parking lot. I would have not been surprised if that had happened either.
We'll talk to you in November. It's actually not that far away. Yeah. Supposed to knock on the door and let him know that we're leaving so he can take his stuff in.